All right, guys, I'm sitting here with Richard Diaz. You guys may or may not know me. Hopefully you do. My name is Brian Fishcher. I was a top CrossFitter for about 10 years. Competed on the Olympic team for bobsled, skeleton for another 5-6 years. Athletics has been my entire life. And now I spend a lot of my time interviewing people, making programs, owning my gym, and starting a YouTube channel. So one of my top YouTube channel episodes I ever had of all time, actually it is number one, was when I came here to Rich's house. By a long shot. By a couple 100,000 views. We came here in the garage, which we're going to go to in a little bit, and we went over running mechanics. And you're really big on economy.
Efficiency and economy.
Efficiency and economy. That's what it is. So he broke everything down in such a way that a lot of people weren't really used to. It came across as easy to pick up, and it grasped to a lot of people, and a lot of people are really, really excited about it. So we wanted to make this video. We wanted to attach it to a program, and we're going to go over pretty much all the things that make this new and why we should change from the old way to the new way, which is Rich's way.
The right way.
The right way.
Right.
So why is it the right way?
All right. So,
not that it is the only way, right way, but what's your argument?
Can I just make the argument that
Yeah.
it is the only way?
Okay.
I mean, you can get someone like yourself. Let's talk about athleticism. You get a guy that's in really good shape. His body is very resistant to lots of pain and circumstance. Gets away with a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So I've seen athletes run that perform really well, but their efficiency's crap. They just don't run well. So it becomes a problem of physics. You know, the sky's blue, grass is green. I drop a rock, it's going to fall every single time because gravity is at work, right? So when you start imposing yourself against gravitational forces, when you start fighting with inertia, when you start imposing braking forces because of the way you're tossing yourself at the ground, this is an encumbrance, always. So it's, talking about right and wrong, someone might think, wow, how egotistical is that guy, right?
Yeah.
It isn't about ego. It's not about, I'm saying that it's my way. I'm saying that there's physics at play, and if you violate the fundamental presence of physics, then you're barking up the wrong tree. And I will see a guy that runs really well and make a few little tweaks in the way they're moving, and they will get faster. And what is more common and more important to most people is the injuries go away. Because if you continuously throw yourself into work inappropriately, ultimately you will be injured. And so going back to an athlete that has strong bone, has tough tendon, good musculature, strength to weight ratio is good, they get away with murder. And I see this a lot. And it becomes a tough sell for them to think, well, I run a 17-minute 5K or a 16-minute 5K. Why would I want to mess with that, right? I've seen world-class athletes that are just screwing the pooch. They just do not run well.
Well, owning a gym, I see people who lift massive weights with the worst form I've ever seen.
Well, and then that's another physics problem.
And they don't care, right? But I know, I'm not a pro with the running mechanics like you are, but I am a pro with teaching someone how to lift weights.
Right.
And I can tell you that millimeters, centimeters, the smallest movement will be
massive.
10, 20 pounds on someone's lift.
And I'm not as well schooled with weight training as you are, but I came from that background as well. I own gyms and things like this. And, just a traditional lift where you see somebody make the error of throwing the weight away from their body as opposed to bringing it up linearly to get it closer to the body. So they're just in a better position to do the work.
I don't think people don't think about running like that, though.
Well, it's a great analogy because it's exactly what it is. The difference between strength training, for the most part, and running is the fact that strength training is commonly closed chain. You're attached to the earth with both feet or attached to the earth either on one foot without leaving the ground. Where in running, it's open chain. So you're literally throwing yourself in the air, and the way you make your landing has everything to do with your success or failure. And so we kind of alluded towards the traditional approach to running, which has been for many, many years heel striking. We were taught to land on our heels. What's really interesting, and I just saw this on a Facebook video somebody posted, Roger Bannister in 1954 breaking the 4-minute mile. And back then,
Just giant heel strike?
no,
Photo? No.
no,
Oh, no?
perfection in form. The difference was that the shoes they were wearing were not scientific running shoes. They were just leather shoes that were flat, right? So there's no imposition from the shoe. They just went and run. And everything about the way these guys were running in that video was exactly what I'm teaching people to do. We're just trying to get back to running properly because we've been exposed to this influence of the running shoe industry that is causing us to make grave errors with the way we move. And it's getting better. People are starting to smell the coffee with books that came out, like Born to Run was a big one, caused a lot of people to start rethinking the way they're running.
And you go to the running store now, like it's rare you see the big heel anymore. Out of all the shoes.
Right. So what they've done is they've changed the narrative a little bit. Now they have big stack height, so the entire shoe's high off the ground, and then that changes everything for you too. So aside from all that, what I try to get people to do is understand the mechanics of the way to run, so that putting themselves in an appropriate position. Force production off the ground is a function of stability, which we're going to cover. We're going to do this. But at the end of the day, I will be happy to argue with anyone that wants to present the argument that they feel like overstriding and heel striking is okay. If you think that, then you probably still think the earth is flat because you're completely confused. It's a function of physics. And we're going to visit this. So.
And if you don't have joint pain now, you're going to.
It's going to come, right?
Which I think is very important.
And I've been in this business a very long time, and I have people daily communicate with me through social media or messenger or email. And the common thing people will say is, I'm getting older. I'm 45 years old. I want to be able to continue to run till I'm 70. I don't want to not be able to run because I enjoy it so much. But I know that the path I'm on is going to lead to a disruption that eventually takes me out. And I just don't want to not be able to do it anymore. That's more the case with my clientele than someone trying to eke out a little bit more performance. The good news is both things happen because the path to reducing injury and the path to performance is the same path. You got to move better to reduce the injury. You got to move better to get faster. So
I like that.
I think it's it's a critical thing. I mean, my whole life is bent on this. I've been 30 years in this business doing this. I'm 25 years in doing clinical analysis on athletes. And it's come to this. It's come to these very narrow focused things, which is you got to develop efficiency to improve economy. Without economy, even in CrossFit, if you're not economical in your moves, the cost of work is going to be great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't even tell you. So many movements that literally half my training was doing something I was already really good at and just fine-tuning it a little bit so that I wasn't going to get as tired.
Well, and incidentally, that's what the book's about.
Yeah.
So the book is obviously a complete departure of what is typical. I feel very strongly about the approach. I think that the idea that developing your aerobic pathway is going to encourage improvements in your lifts and cause you to be a better CrossFit athlete, I think that's a mistake. Personally, I think it's a mistake. Knowing what I know about the energy systems, knowing, based on not an opinion, not because, I hung around with some people that were
That's
good.
my favorite thing about you is you have so much data and so much
It's crazy.
science behind
people
everything.
people that I've worked with that are professionals in the industry, PhDs in exercise science, when they come to hang out with me and they realize how much data I have, they're like, dude, do you realize this is millions of dollars worth of information you have? You're not doing anything with it? And honestly, I haven't.
We are now.
Yeah, we have. We have. I mean, you encouraged me to take a hard look at this, and rather than trying to just go from an opinion, I wanted to be evidence-based. I wanted to be very confident in my path. And so the information that we created in this book comes from data. It's not coming from my opinion. So I blindly, and I discussed this in the book, I blindly took 100 people that I have tested in the past between the ages of 25 and 50 years old. And I looked at the cost of work for each of these people, and I skewed them all up to the same threshold. So regardless of whether you're 25 or 50, I took you to a point where you are now clinically 100% into your sugar stores, which means now you're producing a tremendous amount of lactate. all right?
This is typically your max effort, correct?
It wouldn't be a max effort, but you are on a hellbound train.
Yeah, it's about
So
to be
if
there.
you're at that point, there's no sustainability beyond there, right? So I took everybody to that point, and then I did the math. And then I did the same thing with their ages, and I did the math. And I've concluded some very cool deal points that really allowed me to give the consumer, minus a clinical assessment with me, a path to follow in order to develop the energy systems, which is another day, right? We're going to do that in the book.
Yeah.
But today it's about the mechanics. Tomorrow, with the book, they can learn about the economy developing process. That's very specific, exclusively specific to a CrossFit athlete, which is completely out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Other than,
Which is an anaerobic athlete.
well, yeah, and I mean, I shouldn't say it's out of my wheelhouse because in energetics, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you came to me tomorrow and said, I need to run a marathon, I would know what to do with you. If you told me that you needed to improve your 40-meter sprint time, I would know what to do with you. I wouldn't necessarily be the best coach to teach you to run a 40. I'm not a sprint coach, but I can certainly look at your mechanics and say, well, this is why you're not able to run fast.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's cool. It's a good mix. I mean,
Yeah, you're a battle of fatigue specialist.
yes, the dark horse winning the battle with fatigue. Right?
Yes.
That's what we call it.
All right, let's get into the garage, the secret lair, the bat cave, all the above, and let's get into what makes people better, more cost effective, more efficient, all the above again. Let's do it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to start with your posture. Before we concern ourselves with how to run, you have to have a starting place. And what I wanted to do, look, let's bring this foot back so we can see this foot forward. Left foot forward, a little more. Okay, so I'm using my stick so I don't get in the way of the camera, but ultimately, obviously enough, here's this arch, right? And incidentally, earlier I spoke of the shoe industry putting us on a bad path when it comes to shoes. And what traditionally you see is motion control and various attributes of the shoe that's supposed to correct the way you move. I'm here to tell you there's never been any evidence that shows that these type of shoes will benefit you. What you want to do is you want to encourage natural functionality from your feet, and you don't want to inhibit that process. So here's this arch. And what happens, you've heard the term pronation. This is when the foot falls inward over the arch as you're landing. And that propagates all sorts of problems. So what's traditional is they'll put an arch support in here. Go to see a podiatrist, he may put an orthotic in your shoe, an appliance that's going to support your arch. You don't want external support for your arch. You want your foot to do the job. So there's a thing known as a windlass mechanism. I want you to press up onto your ball of your foot. No, lift your heel up. Just lift your heel up. This is your heel. Yeah. Okay. So right now, what he's doing is his big toe and his toes are flexed in what's called dorsiflexion towards the sky. And in the course of doing that, he's contracting his arch. This musculature here and the fascia and the connective tissue on the bottom of the foot is engaged. This is what sets you up for developing stability, because the midfoot is now firing, which is causing to prepare for the landing or prepare for the body weight. And that's what we're trying to encourage. We're trying to encourage accessing stabilization of the foot. So something very interesting to note is that when he flexes here, let's call this mobility. So the first joint, MPJ1 here, flex a little bit more. Up, no, the other way. This joint now being flexed, this is mobility of the forefoot. Mobility of the forefoot is creating stability for the midfoot. Set your heel down. Try to imagine he's approaching his foot with his body. Bring your knee forward, keep your heel down. His body's approaching his foot, he's landing. Now he has ankle dorsiflexion. He's got mobility here. Mobility here is going to provide stability here. Stability here is going to provide mobility here. Mobility here is going to provide stability here. in stacking order, the way the sequence of events should happen is you need to be mobile to be stable, mobile to be stable, mobile to be stable. Now, the argument I created earlier about heel striking not being the appropriate way to do this, or overstriding, place your heel forward like this for me. Okay, try to imagine that as he runs, a little further forward, a traditional heel striker would do actually this on ground contact. Hope that the cushion in his heel is going to provide protection from the impact. But as you could see too, his knee is extended and his heel is making initial contact and he's flexed. As his body approaches, just go ahead and set your foot down, kind of step over it. As his body approaches like this, he's basically created a collision. He has to overcome that unstable collision because he bypassed all the mechanism in the foot that is designed to provide stability. So basically he collided with the ground. His impact, back up again, his impact, foot forward, his impact went straight up into the knee and potentially into the hip and back. Now typically what happens when someone does this as their body approaches and the arch is not engaged, he will fall in, and that pronation will cause the knee to internally rotate, and now you have IT band issues. So this part of the leg, folks, when you start noticing that you have to make peace and love with your foam roller, because this material here is always fired up, it's because you have that rotation. And that rotation and that twisting action is really playing havoc on that connective tissue. So most of the injuries that you see in traditional running come from this episode. Heel striking, overstriding, collision, instability. So it's important that we address this. All right, so face the front for me, please. All right, then the other thing is that most people that are traditionally heel strikers, what will happen is when they run, they tend to evert. So the path, do this, okay, so now he's on the outside edge of his foot. This is called the varus edge of his foot. And he's behind it because he's overstriding. As he approaches his foot with his body, you'll see the rotation. So bring it in, come forward with your body, And then, he's so strong, he's kind of hard to make mistakes. But you can see this is typically what happens. His body would be passing over the unstable pillar. We'll refer to this as a pillar. And that's going to cause problems for him. So we want to avoid this. So go ahead and stand on both feet again. Now we want both feet pointing in the direction we intend to travel. Easy enough to cause the hips to be in line with the feet. The feet should be just beneath the hips. Shoulders are square and relaxed. And turn sideways for me. Look straight ahead. We want this natural posture. His spine's in good alignment. He's got good posture anyway. But what we're looking for is that we want him to be looking down the road. So his gaze, if I was to put like a tennis ball under drop your chin a little bit. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, now he's already in good posture. His shoulders are relaxed and his feet are pointing in the right direction. Sounds simple and would seem not to be important to discuss, but flex your toes. Just flex your toes forward and back like this. Most people that have a tendency to run incorrectly, if I have them do this for a while, I'll be a little more aggressive with it. Their feet will start to splay out, okay? Because that's the natural inclination of the way they've been landing on their feet or on their heels. Okay, but we want this to happen. We want those feet to bring them a little closer together. We want those feet to be able to flex forward just like this. If you can't do that, go ahead and clear the ground. No, same direction. Yeah. Clear the ground. 4 foot, clear the ground. Just, march in place, lift up. I'll have a lot of people try to do this. And now he's been trained, so he's finding his 4 foot no problem. A lot of people doing this will land heel first. And their perception will be that they're doing this, and they're in fact not. And so you're going to hear me talk about perception a lot because it's an important element of the process. If you can't perceive what you're doing is correct and you can't see, in fact, that it is correct, you can go down the wrong path. This is the biggest problem with trying to teach people how to run. All right, now I want you to bend the elbow for me. Now what I want to do is, he's still got a relaxed shoulder. His thumb is resting on the top of his hand. I would like to see a straight line from his elbow to the top of the hand like this. I'd like a little bit more angle, just above the crease of the elbow, thumbs above the crease of the elbow. And then if we relax this, and then I want you to draw it. Draw your hand straight back. Okay, look straight ahead for me. Okay, now I want his shoulders squared. See, he's got so much musculature, it's hard for him to do this. But what we want to do is maintain that arc. And now what we've done is we've drawn our arm back for the arm swing. The shoulders should be still in alignment right through to the foot. And then we've created a little energy in the pec group here. And so you feel the tension here? So what happens is if he just relaxes his arm and draws it forward so that his humerus, his upper arm, is still in line with his torso, this is the path for the arm swing, from here to here. Keep the shoulder where it is. Just bring the elbow. There you go. See, he's so tight up in here, it's hard for him. And incidentally, it's a good time to talk about this. I will tell you what I want you to have happen. It doesn't mean your body will agree with me. You may find that because you just have a lot of tension, it's hard to inhibit that rotation of the shoulders. But you want to try. You want to fight this a little bit till you train your body to become more comfortable of swinging your arm versus swinging the shoulders. Because when the shoulders rotates, you can see the hip now rotates, and so does the foot. Now he's got both feet on the ground. If he was to try to do that with one foot in the air, he would rotate and his foot would essentially go counterclockwise. So if this goes this way, his foot will come this way in order to find balance. And then his foot is now crossing in front of the other foot, which is breaking midline. And that rotation is an instigator of poor contact with the ground when he lands. You want to make sure that you keep the shoulders quiet and you swing the arm relative to swinging the shoulders. Big mistake, hard one to correct for most people. So I want you to, deal point, this is the big one. Make sure you get your arm swing organized. It will save you. You'd be surprised. People that tend to land, you see the wear pattern on the outside of their shoe and their heel, it's because they're landing across their body. They're unstable. Stability is key to successful running. If you can't get stable, you can't create force. You can't create force, you can't go faster. If you're unstable when you land, you create injuries. It's the critical element in the whole process. Anything that throws you out of being stable is a problem. We don't want any rotation up here. We don't want rotation here. We want to settle it all down and move the arms in a nice pattern, just like that. Now, I'm telling you, hardest thing in the world to correct for most people, but it's critical. Okay, so let's face the front again. So now, we've talked about the posture. We relax the shoulders. We've got kind of an athletic posture. The knees are soft. Knees are soft. Okay, so tall from the hips up. Good, just like that. And in this position, we're going to start moving. So we're going to start marching in place, like I showed. Now, all we're doing, this is important. Be a little bit more aggressive with it. Give me my arm swing. All right, so this is an important lesson. I will have many people, I would recommend those that are listening, follow this pattern in front of a full-length mirror. We spoke earlier, behind the scenes with the camera, about what I do with people. Because if you can't see it, you're not absolutely convicted that you're doing the right thing. As I suggested, someone might be landing on their heel first while they're doing this. And it's just more natural to them to do that. If we start to move into a run, guess what's going to happen? You're going to accelerate right into a heel strike. So you got to find the forefoot first. And now we're just starting to engage the foot and starting to develop stability. Easy to do when you're standing still. All right, cool. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually get wiggy with it. We're going to start moving.
All right.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put things to play. Already what I'm seeing is that you want to kind of lower your arm down. I want you to try to keep that tight angle.
Okay.
A little bit tighter angle. All right, so marching in place. Good, looking straight ahead. A little bit more aggressive. Okay, now turn that into a run in place. A little quicker steps. Okay, now what you're not seeing, and incidentally, I think this is a tremendous way to approach this if you're doing this at home. You want to get on a treadmill. Obviously, my treadmill goes in both directions. Yours probably doesn't. Doesn't matter. I'm doing this for the camera. So I'm going to start moving the belt at a slow rate of speed. So he's not doing anything different other than now the belt's moving. I want you to make sure that your heel makes contact with the ground. All right, so now we're in posture. We understand where we're supposed to be. We're going to start putting it to work. And the cool thing about this is I'm able to give you a side view while you're looking at it from the front. And incidentally, I'm going to turn the camera around for him to see what he's doing so he can make self-corrections. If you have the capacity to do this type of thing, I highly recommend it, because being able to see what you're doing from all angles is a monster for your corrections. It's going to help you so much, I can't even begin to explain it to you. Okay, so marching in place. Good, just like that. Turn it into a run. Good, a little bit more pace. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to start moving them. So now what I'm doing is he's doing the same thing. Bring the elbows back for me.
There we go.
Make sure you let your heels set down. Little quicker steps. Relax your shoulders a little bit.
Whew.
So now we're doing this very slowly, because what's important now is finding ground contact, getting comfortable with where you're making contact with the ground with your foot. Now, what's cool about being able to see this in the video is you could see whether you're allowing your heel to touch down. We want the heel to make contact with the ground, just not first. The other thing that's really important, back up a little bit. The other thing that's really important is we don't want the lower leg to get ahead of the knee, because then he'd be overstriding. We don't want that. We don't want to reach out and find the ground. Quicker steps. Quicker steps. Okay, now we're underway. I want you to try to pick your knees up just a little bit for me. Quicker steps. All right, now we haven't done it yet, but we're going to do it very soon. Is I'm going to set a metronome onto his running mechanics. Back up. Because the frequency of contact is very, very important. If for no other reason, following a metronome encourages you to cause both feet to share the load equally. So the point being, we don't want one foot leading and one foot following. This happens commonly with people. They tend to be dominant on one side, and then they develop compensations. You never hear of anyone getting injured in the knees, both knees at the same time, both shins at the same time, both calves at the same time. It's usually because they're dominant on one side. The metronome helps you to develop what's called bilateral equivalence.
I can feel my right leg.
Yep.
It's definitely dominant.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get the metronome going. Okay, so I've got an app on my iPhone. It's called Metro Timer. There are plenty of different metronome apps you can get. This one's free. It's very, very simple to use. And I have it set up with a speaker so that you can hear it a little louder. This is set at 180 steps per minute. That's the stride frequency. See, you're a little behind it still, a little slow. Drop your chin a little bit. All right, now he's entrained to the frequency. Now, if I were to come around and look, I can see from the side view what it looks like for him to run. But now that you've seen it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it so he can see it. Again, this is a very important tip. If you can make this happen, you're on the road to success. I'm trying to line this up with your knee, and you can see that your foot is staying behind your knee when you make contact, right?
Yeah.
So you're not overstriding. This is really important. Now that we've kind of gotten accustomed to this frequency, we can encourage more pace. Very nice. Keep an eye on your work so you can see what you're doing. That looks amazing. That looks amazing. Now, notice that we didn't rush into anything. We're very conscientious of all the deal points. We want to make sure we're on our forefoot. We want to make sure that our shin is not getting ahead of our knee. We want to keep our arms moving in a nice clean path. Shoulders relaxed, minimal rotation, if at all, at the shoulders. Now, a lot of people get confused about the metronome. They think they can't run fast with the metronome. Because I'm controlling the rate of speed at the belt and I'm controlling the frequency of his contact, nothing's going to change other than the speed. I'm going to speed it up. Now he's running significantly faster, but the appearance of it is that he doesn't look any different because his stride now is opening up behind him. He's not changed his contact point. You can see that your knee is still posted above your foot on contact. So you're not overstriding. That causes you to be more stable, and in the end product is you're going to be running much, much more efficiently. Go ahead and take a break.
Ooh, that felt good.
Did it?
Yeah.
Cool.
That was the first time I could feel the metronome.
So
Okay.
I want to kind of go through what we just did. We started slowly. I had him at about 3 miles per hour on the belt once we started moving. It's cumbersome to try to keep that frequency at that low speed, but it's important because what you're doing is you're training your neurological pathways to find your forefoot and get that mojo working for you. As I started to increase the speed of the belt, his sole purpose is to stay on frequency. Now, a lot of people want to quibble about the frequency. They want to buy a hall pass by saying, you know, I used to be at 164 strides per minute, now I'm at 170. Isn't that okay? Well, that just means that your contact point is closer to your body when you land, but you're still overstriding. In order to not be in a position of overstriding, your frequency has to improve because your foot has to come through the gait cycle in a timely fashion. 180 strides per minute almost ensures that your contact's going to be closer to your body. The closer your foot is to your body when you land, the more stable you are.
Does it matter how tall or short you are?
It doesn't matter how tall or short you are.
Okay.
Because realize that gravity is what we're dealing with, right? And it's interesting, you brought this up, so one of my favorite factoids is every creature on this planet must travel 3 centimeters to be in flight for 1 body length.
Okay.
So you and I are different heights. I still need 3 centimeters in order to travel 6 feet 2 inches. You need 3 centimeters to travel your height. We don't need your stride to be that big. Your stride needs to be, well, at 180 strides per minute, it's going to put you like right here. So your actual vertical oscillation, how much hop you get, is you don't need to leave the ground more than 1.5 inches. And so the further you reach, the higher you're going to bounce, right? Because you have to transition the trailing leg and the forward leg. And that means you got to have hang time. So the further you reach, the higher you go, the higher you go, the harder you land. You start to shore that up by bringing your frequency closer to your body, and it's immaterial how tall you are.
Okay.
Because we all look like a dot from a satellite. We're just this dot. And so some people want to make that argument, but at the end of the day, they're trying to placate the fact that they're not running properly. If you don't get the gait cycle correct, everything's going to go wrong. So we talked about posture early on. I want to touch on a few things. Mistakes that people make. So stand up for me and face that way. So I've seen people like put your chin up towards the sky a little bit. Look up a little further. Well, it's a little too much. I see people run this way. So when your head and your chin is posted up like this, your tendency to reach your foot, put your left foot forward on your heel. This is usually what ends up happening, is you start to land on your heel, you start to lean back, so now your posture has changed. Why is that not coming? Okay, your posture's changed, and now you're opposing inertia. Inertia wants to be into your back, and being in this position, just because you tilted your head back can really screw that up. Now, bring your chin down. When you bring your chin down, your tendency is to bring your butt back. So now you broke your power because you're tipped at the waist. You don't want to be tipped at the waist. You want to be able to keep a nice tall posture. Bring your feet back into position again. Athletic posture, so knees are soft, torso's tall, and you want a nice slight, I got you, a nice slight lean. Just keep your feet where they were. I'm not going to let you fall. Okay, so now in this position, he's got a really nice lean. And so inertia now is working for him. It's at his back. It's helping to push him down the road. If I let go, he's going to fall forward. That's the position you want to be in when you're running. If you change the position of your head, you can change and alter your landing. So it's important that you understand that. We covered most everything that you really need to cover in respect to the way to move. Then the question is how you go faster. And I said it once, and I'm going to belabor the point. Your speed should be a function of force production off the ground. Stand face this way for me. So let's, just for the sake of the camera, I want you to try to imagine his right foot is posted on a skateboard. And the direction would be, I want you to accelerate. So his thrusting leg is going to be his left leg. So he's going to bring your knee up and forward. And then, so when you hit the ground contact is going to be pretty consistent with his foot. Now, if he was to hit the ground out here, which would be an overstride, he's going to fall on his back because he's on wheels over here. And then if the foot was behind him, he's going to fall on his face. So intuitively, his contact point is going to be very close to where this is. And then what he's going to do is he's going to push himself forward. So like that. Now, he is pushing his body forward. This is a really important point. When, bring it up and just then set it down hard. Okay, good. So he's pushing into the ground, driving himself forward, which is going to create, bring your foot all the way behind you, leave it out here. So now what we get, you can hold on if you need to. So now what we're going to get is we're going to get hip extension. This hip extension is going to provide hip flexion. His knee's going to come back. He pushed off the ground, he's got extension, he gets flexion. The more flexion he gets, the more gravity is going to be pushing down on the foot, and the more force he's going to get off the ground, and the further he's going to travel relative to each contact with the earth. He's driving himself forward. Now, if he was heel striking, and this is also a very important point, put your foot out ahead of you, put the trailing leg back a little bit. So now realize what he's doing now is he's going to draw his body forward. He's pulling his body forward in order to get over his foot. And he's not going to have any benefit of stability until his body is over his foot. I refer to this as being late to the party. Until his body, just move forward until you're standing over that foot. Until he gets to that, bring your other foot forward. Okay, bring it all the way through the gait cycle. Okay, back up. Back up with the right foot. So go back on your heel again. This is impromptu. He's never heard me do this before.
Yeah, sorry.
So what he's going to do is he's going to pull his body forward, and then knee goes up. Do it again. Do it again. Just do it again. No, come all the way back, and then pull your body forward. So now he's stable. Go all the way back. But now he landed. He collided with the earth. His body's collapsing because he's not stable. He's going to recover when he brings his body back over that foot. Now he's stable. He's late to the party. But the other consideration that I wanted to make was he is now working the posterior chain. He's pulling with his hamstring and his glute. So what ends up happening with most people that are strong enough, they end up with injuries to the posterior chain. So they might find their hamstring bothers them right under the butt cheek because they're forcefully pulling on that hamstring to draw their body forward. You don't want to do that. You want to be on point almost instantaneously, and that happens when your contact point's closer. That happens at a stride frequency of 180 strides per minute. Cool?
Yeah, I actually really like that analogy with the skateboard because
yeah, it's my favorite.
like immediately, I already know this is terrible for skateboarding. And it even feels like when you start talking about it, like there's like no way that would ever work. And then when I want to go faster, I'm always like, huge hip angle.
Well, and the other consideration is that
I've never heard that analogy before.
When you land here, as soon as that heel touches down, your glute fires. So my quad is engaged, my hamstring's engaged. I'm slapping the mic, I'm sorry. My quad is engaged, my hamstring's engaged. I'm synergistically locked down. I'm stable. I can feel my pelvic floor. Everything is now really, really solid. So I can drive my body forward. Where before, if you land out here, you're actually collapsing until your body gets into this position.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is enough argument for why you don't want to overstride.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's really good.
And incidentally, that can happen to you if you land on the front of your foot too. I'm still overstriding. I'm still collapsing. The injuries that result from this are different than the injuries that result when you land on your heel. And I don't know which is worse.
And every time you come underneath you have your own built-in shock absorber.
You're engaging the system that was provided you. You're no longer relying on the shoe to do it for you because you're using your system. Now, going back to the shoe, try to imagine that you had a shoe with a big stack height. You're basically collapsing into that cushion, right? So if you jumped off of this treadmill onto the ground being firm, your body would become supple to absorb the energy from the impact. If the ground was soft, you'd become rigid in order to protect yourself from the soft contact. So you actually cause your body to stiffen when you're on a cushion, and you cause your body to be more supple when you're not. And so the argument of trying to put that mattress beneath your foot, it doesn't make any sense. Now, a lot of people go there because they've been having injuries. Well, they're having injuries because they're running poorly. It isn't because the shoe. And the shoe won't save you. I don't care. As a matter of fact, if you run poorly and you get into a shoe that's more in contact with the earth, a more minimal shoe, you're still going to hurt yourself.
You get instant feedback if you do something wrong with a minimal shoe.
Right.
It hurts right away.
Right. Well, so there are like a couple 100,000 mechanoreceptors in the front of your foot. And that's giving information to your central nervous system to make decisions about your contact. What muscles to fire. It's like a tuning fork. You actually tune yourself to the impact forces with the ground and proactively create contractions to protect you. Where when you hit that heel, you get no information, or hit that pad, you get no information, and your body's just taking the hit. It's blindly taking a hit. So the takeaway here is, if you follow the process, make sure, be studious about it. Look at the deal points. Make sure that the simplest things you have correct. Because if you try to move ahead and just try to accelerate into pace, I promise you'll make mistakes. And slowly work into this. And we wanted to talk about this, and I'm glad I just thought of it, is that if you are already running a lot, let's say, for example, you're running 20 to 50 miles a week, or let's say that you're into high-intensity training and you're looking to improve your track times. You're going to the track and running 400-meter repeats, 100-meter repeats, 200-meter repeats. All those fast, high-intensity efforts. If you now are trying to land on your forefoot with the amount of force you're producing and your calf muscles are not trained, you're going to get really sore. You're going to be putting a lot of load into the fascia and the connective tissue and the musculature Saving the joints, incidentally, you probably won't have any problem with your hip, your back, your knees. That almost will give you a false sense that you're on the right path, which you are, but you're still hurting yourself. You could have soft tissue problems. You could have plantar fasciitis. You could have Achilles tendonitis, calf problems, and it's all a result of too much too soon. You have to take it slow, cut your workouts down, allow yourself a little time. It's not a death sentence. If you spend a few weeks really encouraging the adaptation to the frequency of the stride, contact points, you're going to become a better runner. And ultimately, you're going to be able to get back to running the way you were, but this time you'll be running safely, faster, and effortless. Since I used the word effortless, one of the things that I want to drive home is, we discussed this briefly earlier, I believe. My specialty is developing economy and efficiency. What we've just discussed is efficiency, how the body moves. It's important that the movement is appropriate because that lowers the cost of effort. And then when you start to be competitive, you want to start developing your energy system where the economy lives. All right? I highly recommend you use a heart rate monitor with your training. And in our book that we provided, that hopefully you've purchased, that goes along with this video, we discuss the energy system in great depth, how to encourage improvements in anaerobic metabolism. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how to be aerobic. You just slow down. But you're not an athlete that wants to slow down. You want to compete at a high level. You have to develop the anaerobic pathway in order to do this. And I developed a very, very conscientious and very thought out approach to developing that. I like to refer to it as the dark side, the place where evil may live, evil lurks. Anybody that's had a lactic acid burn knows what I'm talking about. Developing that pathway is very, very critical. Moving well is the first step in becoming less expensive in your movement patterns.
Agreed. And I think a lot of the things that we've talked about here can transfer into a lot of the other movements. So just because we talked about running,
that's a good point,
doesn't mean that what you learned here doesn't transfer over to weights or a rower or a skier. Like, you should be learning how to make yourself more efficient and economically a little cheaper in everything that you do.
Yeah. Hammering yourself at whatever effort never usually pays dividends. Moving better, and incidentally, we know people mutually that are learning the art of lifting. And their ability to get into that strength is a function of moving the weight properly. Mm-hmm. So you may have been strong enough to do the work initially, but your movement patterns were incorrect, and so you couldn't make the lift. And so essentially, this is very much in keeping with what we're talking about. And I'm very confident if people take the time, spend a couple weeks working on the mechanics, revisit the video to make sure you have all these deal points.
And the beeping noise is huge.
Get on the cadence, get on the metronome. And it's really, really critical that you take it slow. Wish you guys the best of luck with this. All right, so I know that there's probably some things that we didn't cover. There always is. I'm available. You can reach out to me on Instagram. It's at DIAZHP, at DiazHP. You can visit my YouTube page, which has lots of different things on dealing with injuries related to running and such. And that is just my name, Richard Diaz, simple to find. My website is diazhumanperformance.com. I can be reached that way as well. I'm happy to answer as many questions as you present. I really enjoyed having the opportunity to work with Ryan here. He's a master at his craft. It's like peanut butter and jelly.
And I have a bunch of YouTubes as well that we collaborated on together, which you guys could see. One of them which went super viral. And my YouTube's just Ryan Fishcher with no space. So RyanFischer. You can find me on Instagram as well at Ryan Fish, RyanFisch.